What's your name?
Stephen Benedict.
Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you guys. Appreciate it.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah, so my childhood started very much of a roller coaster ride. It was a lot of, so I was put into foster care at 4 months due to neglect and abuse and just, very unstable situation. Then I was put back into my mother's hands with my brother being born not too long after that. So we're 2.5 years apart. We were living in at motel rooms. My mother was dating another gentleman at the time, and he saw fit to pretty much lay his hands on us whenever it was, at his ease to do. And so at that point, my grandparents had found out about everything, and they tried to take us in for a short period of time. But at their age, trying to take care of two toddlers was kind of unfeasible. So the next best thing for us to do was to be put back into foster care, which we were put into foster care for another 5 years, bounced around up and down the East Coast. Um, and at that point, it was just really, for me, it was just kind of, just taking care of my brother at that time. So my childhood was very accelerated in the sense I had to develop a lot of awareness, a lot of protection, and a lot of provision skills for my brother especially. And so I took a brunt of a lot of the things that were going around, and a lot of things that were happening in that period of time.
How did it feel taking on that role in that age?
It was it was tough. I mean, obviously, at that age, you don't, you're not really thinking of anything, and my biggest priority at that time was, it was the simplest things for us. And I think it dwindles down that for everything is like, for us it was the importance of just having a roof over our head, having a warm bed to sleep in, and also having a hot meal at night to eat. Those were the main things, and if we had those things across the board, we were set in our eyes. So it was definitely tough trying to be a father figure, but also be very much a child. 5, 6 years old. What do you know about the world? What do you know about life? So. But my main concern was being able to try to take care of my brother and just be a provider and protector.
What were your dreams as a child?
At that point, I didn't have dreams. My dreams were just, trying to figure out where I belonged and what family meant, and just really trying to figure out what life was about in that particular instant. I don't think my dreams and being able to have seeds of those dreams didn't come until later on down the road.
Can you tell me about your relationship with your dad or anyone that you would see as a father figure?
That's a great question, and the men around my life in that sense, in which has come to kind of a big peak for me right now, have been very lacking. As far as leaders and as far as being able to figure out, what was a man's role, what did a man look like, and what was the ultimate aspect of, what was the image of what leader and men and the household role looked like. And not until we were adopted later, did I really see what a man was, in my adopted father. He was ex-Vietnam and then went on to work for Merrill Lynch, but he was very much the joy aspect of who we were and what life was about. I mean, like, he walked around with a smile on his face all the time. When Christmas came around, that was his favorite holiday, and when we would walk through the mall, they would ask him to be Santa Claus because he had a white beard, but also he was like the epitome of joy, for us. And so that, in that sense, and he was very much part of the household as far as taking care of things and taking care of us. But the biggest aspect that he showed and left with me as far as man-wise was when my mother had been diagnosed with bone marrow cancer. Before that period of time, they had went through a tough period of time in their marriage, and they were separated. My mother started dating another man, but the thing that I remember most and which stands out to me the most as far as him being the strongest man that I've been around is that while she was on her deathbed, is that on one side of the bed was the man that my mother was dating and loved her very much and was very respectful of the household and very respectful of the family situation. And then on the other side was my father. And they were both took on roles to take care of a woman in which they loved very much. But my father still being the man in which he has built the foundation, had adopted us and built the household and built everything from the ground up in which we knew, to be there for her, but also to set aside his ego and to set aside that aspect of what he was there for and not take it against the other man that was on the other side of it. So that, to me, right there had really depicted the epitome of what strength was, or of what lacking with ego was, what was being a humble man, but also through that humbleness derived his greatest strength for us.
If you can describe just in one sentence how your relationship with your dad felt.
Joy, free-spirited, and just so childlike.
Can you tell me about your relationship with your mom?
Yeah, my mom, I wanted to say, she ruled the family with an iron fist. You know, she's very bold, very strong, very outspoken. Just very across the board. She was just, very protective. The epitome of protection. And everything that we were involved in, she was a part of. Whether it was sports, education, art, music, anything across the board, she was there, and she was there in full force. Meaning, like, if there was like a band booster club, or if there was a sports engagement that we had, she was always part of whether it be the organization behind it, or she became the president of the organization. And she always had her hand in things that we were involved in. She was always around things, whether it be relationships or anything. Just super protective of us. Nothing like that we've experienced in our earlier years when we were not protected. So it was totally the opposite dynamic, which was, exceptional, and was also so alleviating for me to have to be able to hand over those roles and to not have to worry about that anymore. And I could be a child, and I could be a kid, and I can do the things that kids are supposed to do at that age.
And how would you describe the feeling just with your mom, the relationship with your mom?
My mom was very just strong-willed, powerful, and sometimes very overbearing.
What can you say you learned from both of them?
I definitely learned. So I learned the dynamics of life, in that, one, they gave us a second chance at life, which I'm forever grateful for. But the dynamic in which there's the side of, with my father, where, don't take everything so seriously. Live life in every moment and understand that, that everything doesn't have to be taken to the point of severity, and it's not that serious. If we have the essentials, then we're better off than a lot of other people that don't have them. And then also, there's the aspect of my mother's side, who was very diligent and work ethic, and just very, just pushing and not giving up on everything, and not accepting a no for anything that anybody said that you can't do. So those two things meshed together and gave us such a well-rounded experience of what life in those areas, and built the foundation of who we've become now.
Can you tell me about your first love and how that felt?
My first love, gosh, I don't think I know what
It could be
at that time
Yeah.
what love was or still is. I think within the past year and a half, 2 years, I think I've really developed a sense of what genuine, authentic love is in my most recent relationship. It depicted a lot of the things that I've lacked when I was younger, but also pulled out of some of the experiences that I've had with my parents. But I feel like in this situation and in this relationship, we've had so many synchronicities and so many things that align with each other, and so many beliefs that we have, that I feel like all of those things laid out a foundation of what love really means to me now, and what I expect from it, and what I will tolerate and what I won't tolerate. And I think that comes down to our core values as a relationship, not only for myself, but also when we come together as, a relationship as a whole, like two people joining together to accomplish something greater than themselves.
Who would you say first taught you what love is?
I think relationships across the board, whether it be my parents or whether it be, female relationships that I've had. But I think ultimately where I've really learned within my experience what the epitome of love is, I really reach back to my spiritual extents. And I think that, God for me has really shaped that, and really have taught me my experiences of love, and learning to love myself so that I can love others better.
So we kind of talked about it. If there's anything different or that you would like to add, what was love to you to what you thought it was as a kid compared to what it is now, and how did those two loves feel differently?
I think, when I was a child, love for me was more about security and provision and safety. And as it evolved over the, countless amounts of experiences, it's evolved into a position of, I think there's two types of love, right? I think there's conditional and unconditional love. And I think when we can get to that point of unconditional love, which I feel like I've been really striving to do, and being steadfast to be in a consistent position of it, and that's a very tough place to be, and because it's accepting the people in which you love the most, but accepting them with who they are, with any faulties, and knowing that you love them because of those aspects, because they add more spice to your life. And I think that that's a big place to be, because there's a lot of filters in which need to happen, like taking out ego aspects, but also looking at yourself and being able to accept your own faulties in that sense. So I think that unconditional love aspect is very rare, but I've been really honing in on it, and not being able to, I think when we're not doing the pointing of the finger, and we're doing more of this, pointing the finger at ourselves, that's when we really come to terms of really the true aspect of love.
As far as the unconditional love, whether it be with another person or with God? How would you describe that feeling of that unconditional love?
I think that it's vulnerability, and I think vulnerability projects love before you even say I love you.
Yeah.
And it also brings out the authenticity of who you are. Being able to, I think that it's an act of surrendering, and it's an act of submitting, and it's an act of just being like, this is me, I'm messy, these are all of my faults, and I take accountability for them. Please accept me for that. And when we can do that, I think that the other person is able to, the other person in which you love so much is able to bring down their defensive mechanisms and their walls in order to meet you in that same place. And I think that's where connection is lost a lot of times, and that we lose that, and that should be the centerpiece of everything, is our relationship to staying connected in the toughest of times.
Can you tell me just about it? What's a general good day for you?
General good day for me. I've been really honing in on the fact of being grateful for the little things. And I think that the little things really develop into the big things. And I try to wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do is spend time with God and spend time with just thanking Him for all of the ways in which that He's always been there for me. There's always been patient with me. He's always been acceptant of me, even when I've strayed the most and have been running the opposite way. He's always run faster than I have. So.
Can you tell me about a bad day and how you pushed through that bad day?
Yeah, I think the bad days come with emotional baggage, right? And I think they're really not bad days, but they're days in which we let our emotions overtake us, that make them bad days. And I think it's a perspective aspect, and what I mean by that is that if we are able to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of things, it's very a minuscule baby thing. And but I think that it's the lenses in which we perceive it, because they're so important to us, that they become big things. They become big things to us because they hit us or they trigger us in certain ways that we let overflow. So I think the emotional key aspect is to be able to look at our emotions, and also know that they are not do not let them dictate the situations, because when we do that, we let them overwhelm us. And it's the lens in which we perceive them that make, whether it be good or bad to us.
What's a person or event that's helped shape you, good or bad?
A person or event? Gosh, I've had so many events that have shaped me. From loss to abandonment to to love to acceptance. I think all of them have shaped me in which I've become now, but I don't think more so than within the past year and a half, and even within the past 3 months, that I've done so much work, and I've had so much shaping. Again, going back to my most recent relationship, she's amazing, and that she's had her hand in a lot. She's had her own story, and I think that our two stories are so dynamic that it's brought a lot out in both of us, good and bad, and things that we both need to work on. But I know at the foundation of it, what I feel that is so different is that is that there is a core value of love, and that that it's just made me better, and I appreciate it more than anything, because I've had so much work to do, and I continue to do work, and I think we're all work in progress, and I think that's the beauty part of it.
What's inspired you and why?
I think definitely my parents have inspired me, and they've been a big piece of who I am now, and of what I do now, and what I stand for, and what I really want to make sure that I'm honoring. But future generations and the kids that are being raised, whether they're in foster care, whether they're being adopted, or I feel like that's a big calling on my ministry and my mission, and being able to make sure that not only them but also the men nowadays are really honing in on being men. Not only outside in the public and having an image, but also first and foremost within the household, and leading the household and taking care of their significant other, whether their wife, and then also making sure that relationship is an example and is a learning tool for their children, so that they can go out into the world with the tools and the necessities in which to battle the things and the happenings and the situations that are happening around us right now.
What's been a humbling experience for you, and can you describe the feelings during that experience?
Yeah, humbling experience. I think it's a loss of a lot of people in my life, and due to situations that I can't control. And I think me being as an athlete and also being doing other things, there's a lot of controlling aspects. I want to be able to control situations, but I know at the core of it, I don't have control of anything, and the only thing I can do is show up to the best of my capability for each experience and each situation that arises. And as of late, my biggest humbling experience within these past 3 months was having to go back to get answers for my childhood aspects, and I couldn't do that as much because my parents had passed, both my adopted parents and my birth parents, and those doors were closed. And in that situation, we have a half brother, and I was very reluctant on reaching out to him to get some answers and to have a conversation with him, because I really didn't want to open up that door. And I had a certain perspective of my birth mother, that she had abandoned us, and that she didn't really care, and she didn't really protect us in that period of time. With a lot of push and pull, I picked up the phone and had a conversation with him. And the one thing that stood out to me that changed my whole perspective on not only her, but women in general, and how I perceived certain things and how I went into relationships, was I remember that we were on the phone and he was telling me that they had a photo album, and whenever they got to a certain page in that photo album which had me and my brother on it, my mother would stay on that page the longest and talk about us and talk how she wanted to connect with us, and that in that instant, my perspective, my lenses changed. And it was just like I had a totally wrong picture of her, and she wanted to connect with us, and she was being kept away from us because of volatile situations, and how they didn't know if it was okay for her to reach out to us. And then when I reached out to her, it was too late because she passed. So there's so many different dynamics going on in there, and it's so funny how we perceive one thing, but we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes of everything. And then when we get the bigger picture, it's almost like, in that incident for me, ego was my factor, because I was thinking something and I didn't reach out early enough. And I think that that's something that
Yeah.
we all deal with, whether it be, hurt, or whether it be ego aspects, and like, no, they hurt us and we don't want to reach out. And by the time we do that, it's too late. So, that's tough.
Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate with the word war.
Every day. Every day. I think every day that I wake up, I have to put on the armor,
Yeah.
to step outside my house, to step outside of, just to get out of bed, and I'm getting ready to go to war. And it's not just going to war for, myself or other things, but going to war against other things that don't want me to accomplish what has really the calling upon me, and to do, and to make an impact, and to bring value to not to others' lives, but to also have a mission to, to really be a good human, and be a good man, and just to represent.
Same type of question. Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate to the word peace.
Peace. Gosh, well, I don't think, I don't think, I think the prerequisite to peace is obedience. And what I mean by that is staying in alignment with who you are, but also staying in alignment with, yourself spiritually. And I think that when we do that, staying in alignment brings us peace. I don't think it's something we can go out and find. I think it's something that we are staying in alignment with. And in order for us to achieve that peace factor, there has to be things set in motion before it that are all in alignment, that brings us that peace at heart, brings us that peace at soul, brings us that peace at mentally.
What are some of the things you do to make sure you're in alignment?
Waking up every morning before anybody else is awake, and spending time getting my head together, and also spending time with God, and reading, and just diving into Word, and absorbing as much as I can. That keeps me in that alignment, and that keeps me in that mind frame, and knowing that everything is going to be okay no matter what.
Can you tell me about a truly difficult time in your life, how that felt and how you endured?
Yeah, there's been a span to them, but the most difficult aspects, I think, were when my mother was diagnosed with bone marrow cancer, and watching her deteriorate from this strong, bold woman within a year, having 8 reconstructive surgeries, not coming home from the hospital except for Christmas, and then going back into the hospital, and watching her pass the following February. But her leaving us with the aspect 3 days before she left, she passed, saying everything's going to be okay. And then also 3 years later, having to make the executive decision to take my father off life support from a irreversible coma. That span of window right there was a very tough time, and what preceded that, or was a very dark period of time, where I was living 2 different lives.
Yeah.
And I was trying to live this athlete life, and then I was trying to live this facade life of kind of drowning my pain and my sorrows into all these outside circumstances of superficialness and toxic relationship, and then also alcohol abuse and dabbling in drugs and the wrong people, just two lives that one needed to die. And that period was the darkest time of my life.
How did that feel when you were when you're so you have a double life, and the athlete life is obviously the okay life, and it's the good life, given if you have other factors in it. So then, but you're living this other life that is contrary to essentially your values, and you go in a dark space because of all these things that are happening, and you kind of pile it on, right? When you're in that dark spot, what's keeping you going? To keep on going every day when you're in those moments.
And I've been asked that question quite a bit, and the only things that immediately come to mind are, one, the resilience from when I was a child that was built up in that period of time. Two, my athletic ability and the condition in which my body was enabled me to withstand the abuse I was doing to it. And then, first and foremost, I was definitely being looked out upon, and I definitely had a hand on me, and definitely was, protected. So that, without a doubt, brought me through the light at the end of the tunnel, and let that alter ego just really be diminished and be set aside and not to arise again.
Can you tell me about a truly joyous moment in your life and how that felt?
Yeah, there's been a couple. So, when I was adopted, when we were actually adopted, and we were in court, and we had finally gotten our court papers, and then the judge had actually said, this is your home, this is where you belong. That day was a big weight lifted off my shoulders.
How old were you?
I was only 8. My brother was 6. And I celebrate that day every year, is on January 15th. And and then my first Christmas with my father and my mother, he just did something that was so extravagant for us that I'll never forget. With gifts and things like that. It was just over the top of anything, but he was always like that, which was left so many memories. And then I've had a lot of those joy moments within my most recent relationship. Just a lot of smiles, a lot of laughs, a lot of little things done, note leaving, and I think all of those things are just built up of just unconditional joy.
What keeps you up at night?
I think the uncertainty of some things for the future. I think that's the biggest thing that keeps me up at night, and just not as much, not to the point where it's like I don't know what the future holds, but to the point where it's like, am I showing up every day to the best of my capability that will bring value to not only to my most important relationships around me, also to honor my parents, but also to really bring value to a greater scale, that I'm doing something that is meaningful.
Yeah. What keeps you going every day? It's kind of the same.
It's kind of the same thing. Yeah, kind of the same thing.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets?
I try not to have any regrets. You know, I try to take care of them every day, and that means by saying what I need to say, no matter the response I get from the other end or the lack of response I get from the other end. You know, and I try to lay it out every night so that I know that when I go to bed and I lay my head down on my pillow, is that I've done the best that I can, and that I'm not only proud, but that, you know, I can feel like I've done what I can with the power that I have, and then I leave it at the feet of, you know, the feet of God. So.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
There's a lot. There's a lot moving and going on right now, you know, and I think, you know, obviously we have the next Olympic Games coming up, you know, hopefully, you know, God knows what's going to happen with that now, but, you know, that's on the platform, and then also doing a lot of things within the foster care and adoption space, you know, trying to make an impact in government and really pushing in that aspect to change some bills and making the process a little more streamlined, but also making sure that the communities in which the families who are fostering kids and also adoption are educated, but also taken care of, and then yeah, and then just hopefully, you know, building my own family.
Yeah. You're the author of your life, but what's your picture perfect ending?
You know, in contrary to that, I don't think I'm the author. I don't hold the pen to this story. I'm just living it, and you know, and I'm just trying to live from. I'm just trying to be a good man at this point in my life. You know, there's been a lot of downfalls and a lot of things I've had to fix and a lot of things I've had to come to terms with and really, you know, accept and see my own you know, aspects in which needed to be changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to do the best that I can with what I've been given, and then, you know, just be grateful for each and every day to, you know, attack it in the best way I can, and then also just be an example for others, you know, especially the kids and other men.
That's it.
Cool, man. Cool.